Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the 2024 presidential election as of now, June 2022. And we're just going to be looking at this and analyzing this map. And if the election were to be held today or tomorrow, what I think would happen. So let's get right into it. Again, today's matchup is Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, because that's what I think if I had to bet the matchup would be in 2024. But again, that could change. Don't come back to this in 2 years and be like, haha, this aged poorly, because it's not funny and it's 2 years earlier. So you know. But yeah, this is just what I think would happen as of right now if this were the matchup. So the safe states for Biden, I think he'd Washington, Oregon, California, Hawaii, Colorado, Illinois. Actually, well, let's not do Illinois yet. Illinois, not yet. Maryland, Delaware, DC, New Jersey, Massachusetts. I'll say Connecticut, although that's close. Vermont, New York, and the first district of Maine by safe margins, which are margins of 15% or more. Trump would win, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, even though it doesn't really exist, but I don't want to, get arrested by the feds, so, uh, gotta put that in there. Utah, the Dakotas, all of Nebraska except for the second district, which again, for those of you who don't know, is just the Omaha metro area, which is much more competitive. Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, Indiana, Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, and South Carolina. I think black turnout really falls in 2024, so yes. This is kind of like, I guess, a preview of the battleground map, although again, not all battlegrounds are created equal. Some are more competitive than others. But yeah, so now for Biden, I think Biden wins New Mexico by, a decent amount, probably closer to 7 or 8 than 15. But yeah, I do think it's he'd not really have too much of a problem winning, barring something changing and, barring there being a kind of a red wave type environment. In 2022, New Mexico governor race could be competitive, and there are there's one definitely competitive House race, arguably two, New Mexico. So I think New Mexico will be more watched in 2022 than it will be in 2024, and I think Trump would be kind of foolish to go there when there are more important states for him. But I think we'll kind of revert back to its Democratic roots and vote for Biden. I think he'd win Rhode Island by a likely margin, and I'm only saying it's likely. It would certainly vote for Biden, but I think it's likely. Along with, I think, arguably New Jersey. I'll put New Jersey there too, but I think it's likely because a 15% margin is like a lot, and I don't think enough people realize that. So, like, Biden will win Rhode Island, but it might be by 13 instead of 16, and the states are getting wider. They have somewhat of a rightward trend, and I think that in 2024 it wouldn't really be a 15% loss margin of victory. Maine too is kind of in a similar boat, but Maine could actually be competitive. It could be a lean or even tilt state if things go really well for Donald Trump. But yeah, I think Biden would have by 5 or 6%. Illinois, yeah, Illinois is close. It's 13-14% margin of victory. I don't usually like to put it as likely because I think it kind of makes it seem more competitive than it is, when in reality Illinois is a state that will almost certainly vote blue for like a very long time. But yeah, Illinois likely Democratic. Next up, we've got our likely Republican states, standard states. Alaska's first. Alaska state that I really think is, trending blue, but 2024, I don't think it would flip. Iowa and Ohio, Iowa could honestly be safe. Like, it really depends on how you view it. But I think it would, 15 points is a lot. And Iowa did trend 2% to the right in 2016, 2020 when you adjust it for national partisanship. Right? I think actually 1 point to the right. And it would likely trend to the right again. I think Trump would win it by double digits almost certainly, but 15% is a lot. Like, I could see winning it by 12 or 13, but I think Iowa will be like as red as Illinois. I think for the future, Iowa will be as red as Illinois is blue, and that's kind of a 13-14% margin of victory for the GOP in Iowa. Ohio's similar. I think it'll be a little closer just because the urban areas are still there for Democrats, but the rural areas of Ohio are just awful. They're so red, and they're just gonna keep getting redder anyways. Next up for our likely I think Trump wins Maine second by a decent amount. Same with Nebraska too for Biden. I always forget that, but yeah, it's likely. So both these systems are likely. And then finally, I think we'll put Florida there. Like, when you look at Florida, and you kind of just see where Democrats have to improve, they can obviously try to improve in the Miami area, but it's not likely. And I think Miami-Dade. Biden might do better with Cubans in 2024 than he did in 2020, although we don't know that. And anyway, no matter what, like no matter how you slice it, Miami is bolting to the right, and it would absolutely be kind of a toss-up-ish county in 2024. So, yeah, I think it would swing right again. I think the state of Florida would swing right again, even though Florida does usually like it usually does like incumbents, but at the same time, it's kind of like a state that's always like Florida usually votes to the right of the country, and in a year where the Democrats aren't, spoiler alert, Joe Biden's not really in a good position right now. I just don't think that he'd be able to win Florida, or even be within 5% there. So I think he'd lose it kind of by like a Kerry 2004-ish margin, 5-6%, something like that. But yeah, so I think it's more important now we move on to our lean states. So, like this is like the real battle. Oh, Virginia shall be likely. I always forget that, but this is like the real battleground map. I think this is a map of the states that are most competitive. We'll start with the lean Biden states. I think, the first state, there are actually two states that I kind of just want to eliminate here, which are Minnesota and New Hampshire. And so, like, these are states that I could easily put as likely, but I think toss-up's a bit of a stretch because they are certainly leaning towards Biden at this point in time. Minnesota is a state where the Democratic Party has done very well for the past, like that state lost, I think, was in 1972 with George McGovern, and it just has a lot of Democratic roots. The Republicans are doing better. Like rural parts of Minnesota are trending red, but it's canceled out by like the doubly large swing in the Minneapolis suburbs and the smaller towns like Rochester or Blue Lake or whatever it's called. Like, I think Blue Earth, and even the city of Duluth itself is trending towards Democrats. So I think when you look at Minnesota as a whole, on paper it might look like it's trending red, but education polarization is really going to help Democrats there in the future. And Biden, I don't see why he'd lose it by anything really, and I think he wins it by 4 or 5. It only would trend a little right relative to 2020. New Hampshire's up next. New Hampshire is a state that I absolutely see narrowing up for a few reasons. So first of all, Biden is again like Biden did really well in New Hampshire in 2020, and like I get that you can make an argument for it trending blue, but I don't really think it is. And just because he did well there in 2020 doesn't mean he'll like do well there again. And the fact that he's like so unpopular right now just makes me think like New Hampshire's a state that where he'd just fall, because New Hampshire generally does kind of swing with the country. And so in red waves, it generally will go like 2010, it was very Republican. 2014, it went red, I think, at, if it's in the governor's race, and at the House level, it was very Republican. Then when you look at the 2016 presidential election, Clinton won the popular vote by 2%, and she only won New Hampshire by a couple thousand votes. Like, it was very close. It generally does swing with the country. But in 2020, Biden, the country swung towards the Democrats, and so did New Hampshire. And so I think if the country swings back towards Trump, which I expect it to in 2024, New Hampshire would narrow up. So I just think kind of goes to the country, but still does vote for Biden. I think that's it for a link. Yeah, Biden's only 226 electoral votes. And in case you haven't noticed, this is like the Hillary 2016 map minus Nevada, plus Nebraska's second district. So yeah, it's kind of the floor for Democrats for the time being. But yeah, so for the lean Trump states, I think Nevada is a state that Trump could, kind of do well. And I don't think he'll win it by 5, but I think he could win it by 2.5%. I say that because I think Trump's uniquely good for Nevada. In 2016, 2020, he ran good campaigns there, but the fact that he managed to, like, in fairness, the Democrats didn't really campaign in Nevada in 2020, and they're in, like, the pandemic actually hindered them in Nevada, which you can't say for most other regions. But when you look at the trends in Nevada, especially in Clark County, which is the largest county and home to Vegas, they do look promising for the GOP. We don't know for sure yet. Like, saying Nevada's trending red just blatantly isn't fully true, because there are just as many parts of Nevada that are trending blue that are trending red. But yeah, Nevada is a state that I could see just swinging towards Trump, as a result of polarization. And I think if Trump does continue his gains with Hispanics, Nevada would be tough for Biden to win again. Next up would be Texas, which is a big one for the Republicans because they, again, cannot win presidential elections out of the state of Texas. Like when you look at Texas and when you look at the, the sort of like the way that it votes, it has trended left every election since like I think 2000 or 2004, like maybe even 1996, but it's been trending blue for a while. There's kind of like this cope amongst the Republicans that, the shift in the Rio Grande Valley cancels out the shifts we're seeing in San Antonio, Austin, and Dallas, which makes no sense because the Rio Grande, like, that's comparing like a grain of sand to a boulder, because the Rio Grande Valley has, I think, like 2 congressional districts that are really in it. It's like 2.5 districts. Dallas, Austin, San Antonio have like, what, 13, 14 districts combined. Like, the population is in the millions, whereas Rio Grande Valley has like the population of Dallas, Tarrant, Collin, and Denton is something like, I don't even know, is it like 7 or 8 million people? Like correct me if I'm wrong, but like, I think it's 7 or 8 million. The Rio Grande Valley is home to like maybe 1.5, if that, million people. So like, there's a red shift going on in the Rio Grande Valley. I know that. But when you take a look at what you're seeing in Dallas and Houston, I just really don't think it's appropriate to say that the Rio Grande Valley, with a swing that's like half the size of that, or even an eighth the size of that, if we're being honest here, can cancel that out. So Texas will likely vote red in 2024, like unless there's a massive blue shift in store for us in the next 2 years. I don't think it will be won by a Democrat until at least 2028. But like, yeah, it will narrow up. Even if Trump does better nationwide than he did in 2020, Texas will narrow up because Texas did in like when you look at how Texas shifts, it went from like a Romney plus 16 or 17 states to a Trump plus 10 state to a Trump plus 6 state. Like this is like Texas shifted 4% or 4.5% to the right, despite the fact that we saw a massive swing towards Republicans in the Rio Grande Valley. If you think that that swing is going to cancel everything out in the future, then you're just not looking at it from the correct perspective. So Texas will shift to the left in 2024, but I don't think it'll flip as of right now. Next up, you've got the state of Wisconsin. Wisconsin's another state that I think will flip. I think this is the first flip aside from Nevada. But yeah, Wisconsin is, I think, when you look at the Biden states that are most likely to flip in 2024, Wisconsin to me is definitely top of mind because the rural areas are still like Democrats don't win the Wisconsin rural areas, but they still do fine in them. Like they still get 30-40% of the vote in a lot of rural counties that they'd otherwise be getting 20% of the vote in. So Trump will continue to gain in Wisconsin. The Republicans will lose a little bit in the WOW counties, but then again, I think black turnout, like I mentioned earlier, I think that will fall in will hurt Democrats in the city of Milwaukee, which is like their biggest bastion of votes in the state. And the rural or the working class areas of the state, like in the 3rd district and the La Crosse, Eau Claire-ish corridor, kind of, if you want to call it that, just kind of this area of the state or the driftless region or whatever you call it, they're trending right. And I think that all kind of adds up to make a 4 or 5% margin of victory for Trump. Next up, I think North Carolina could put there. It's really close. I could see being in tilt, but at the same time, North Carolina is a state that is trending left, but at a very slow pace. Like when you take a look at what we're seeing there, the cities themselves and the suburbs are trending blue, but rural North Carolina still has some room to grow for the GOP, and that's why the trend's kind of been stagnant. North Carolina did trend, I think, it got 2% bluer in 2020 here to 2016, but the fact Biden did 2% better nationwide than Hillary Clinton, so it's the swing kind of didn't really exist, if you get what I'm saying. It kind of canceled out. And so that's not optimistic for Democrats, but at the same time, you can look at it through the perspective of North Carolina was safe red 20 years ago or 15 years ago, and it's now a competitive state by every measure of the word. And so I think when you look at it long term, I think Democrats might do well in North Carolina, but in 2024, just not their time. 2024 will be a bad year for Joe Biden, especially if he's the Democrat, especially if Joe Biden's the nominee. And I just don't think he'd be especially with black turnout falling. I think he wouldn't be able to flip it, realistically speaking. So yeah, these are the states that I think will determine the election, and these are the tilt states, the true toss-ups: Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia. And I think generally they all vote one way. Generally speaking, they all kind of just will shift in one direction. And I think from a mathematical perspective, Biden okay, I think Trump wins Arizona. That's easier for me. It's just the suburbs and the Hispanic vote there are enough to do Biden in. I also think he wins Pennsylvania, so that's a tipping point state right there. But Michigan and Georgia, I don't really know, because Michigan's decently blue, and there are actually good most people don't pay attention to this, but there are actually very good trends for Democrats in the Detroit suburbs, and they have some room to grow in Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo, and kind of even the northern part of the state, in what is it, it's Isabella County, I think. There are some ex-urban counties that the Democrats are growing, but I don't think it'll be enough for Biden to win it fully. But I don't really know. I think we'll give Michigan to Biden because I've been pretty generous to Trump this entire video. But in return, I think I'll give Georgia to Trump because, like I said, Georgia is trending to the left rapidly. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'll switch them because Georgia is trending to the left, and in fairness, the Democratic Party did do a 10% better in the House vote from 2016 to 2020. That shift was 10% in favor of the Democrats. And Biden did 6% better than Hillary Clinton in Georgia. So there was a net average of an 8 point swing towards the Democrats in 2016 to 2020. And that would have to completely just be non-existent in 2024 for the GOP to win it. So even with and the thing is, black turnout might decrease in the rest of the country, but I think the Georgia Democrats are good enough with black turnout on their own that, it might be good enough. So I think Biden would narrowly win Georgia as right now, but I think you'd lose Michigan. Like, there are very good trends there for Democrats, but I don't think, I just don't think Biden wins both. Like, especially if Biden's losing Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. I think he narrowly goes down Michigan. But again, Michigan's the closest state, followed by Georgia. So, yeah, that's my prediction as of right now. You know, I think the path for Biden would be through Michigan and Pennsylvania. And, maybe Arizona. Maybe I'm wrong on Arizona too. But just as of right now, I don't really see Biden as in a good position. I just think that the Democratic Party as a whole really would need to nominate someone else than to win the 2024 election. Not Biden, not Harris. There was talk about Gavin Newsom running. Newsom's not a great candidate, but I think he'd be better than Biden or Harris. And they want to look into like a Sherrod Brown or a Roy Cooper or a Jared Polis or even Raphael Warnock if he wins re-election, or Gretchen Whitmer, because I think they'd be a lot better fits for the party than Biden or Harris. But yeah, so that's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye, guys.